Hello and welcome to my channel. This Emmitt Owens pattern was really cute. I thought it was going to be a fun little thing to do. More letters to cut out, which was great. What I didn't realize though, as I was taking off the pattern, how fragile some of my cuts were. And I ended up breaking the letter D as I was peeling all this off. So lesson learned on that one. But yes, the reason for that was due to cutting with a dull blade. And because of that, the blade shifted top to bottom. So the top cut was good and the bottom was too thin. So because I am now an expert at fixing many mistakes from scrolling, I had no problems, just a little bit of glue, a little bit of patience, and a little bit more experience to go along with it. I honestly don't mind doing these repairs. It allows me to really see where I need more practice in my cutting. It allows me to understand that I have to adhere to changing out a blade when I know it's dull. I knew it was dull on the letter A. I went ahead and did the first D and the second D, and didn't realize how thin the material was on the bottom side versus the top. But it honestly didn't take much. It was just more drying time than anything else, and I added more glue on the bottom side after I finally got it secured into place, just to give it some more support. But during this process, I realized how thin the other D was. And because I didn't know what I was going to even do with this, I had to come up with something to make sure all these letters were secure and that they weren't going to break off again. I have no doubt that they will break, even the glued one. It's, even super glue, it doesn't matter. The material is so thin that these pieces were too fragile, and I didn't want to ruin the whole piece by doing something with it that I would take a chance of them breaking again. So my usual go-to is making a backing board for it. So it was just a matter of printing out another pattern and cutting it out. I didn't show that in this video. It was a simple, quick cut. Once that was done, I needed to determine the location of where I was going to put my signature coin. And the reason being is the backing board is only a 1/4 inch thick, but when I do the hole for the coin, the point of the drill goes through the backing board. And so I wanted to make sure it was going to go through in a location that there was wood on the other side. And because I printed out the pattern for the backing board, I had the whole design right on there and I was able to line it up perfectly. So having said that, I may do that again in the future so that I can make sure that these coins are properly placed. As always, we got sanding. The backing board was very simple to sand. There was very little to do. Now the outside of the backing board was not completely flush with the top piece. And while I wanted to do that here, it really was not the way to go. I just got it somewhat closer to where I needed it to be, but I knew I could take care of that after the glue up. So I did toy with this for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, tried to get it more as close as possible. And if you notice on that mark in the center, I did drill a hole straight through so I can line up the Forstner bit for the coin later. I finally got it to where I was happy with it until I was ready to glue. Now I wanted to paint the backing board white so that it'll have a little more contrast and show through the letters to make them stand out a bit more. It's just a standard matte paint. I use a sponge applicator to put it on. I only used one coat. I didn't want it to be too thick, but I wanted it to have a decent coating on it so that it would show through. I'm not real fond of sponge applicators, nor am I fond of using paintbrushes either. It's hard to get a smooth surface with those. but I made it work. You're not going to see a lot of it, and you'll never see it through the letters. So it did turn out decent. Took a while to dry, and once it was dried, I was quite satisfied with the outcome. Now I'm still trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the front of this piece. I still wasn't sure. I went with the tung oil. You know, boiled linseed oil is my go-to. Now I have tung oil in stock. So I dipped this instead of painting it on, because I didn't really want a whole lot of it on the backside, because glue, in my opinion, will stick better to raw wood, and I already had one half of the equation with paint on it. Gluing it up was pretty straightforward. I had no squeeze out. I'm getting better at applying it, and I just put boards in front and back. Used 4 or 5 clamps just to hold it in place. Now that that's done, we get to my favorite part. Yes, more sanding. But the nice part about this was I was able to use the oscillating tool with the smaller sanding head on it and get that backing board perfect to the front piece. It was really nice, and then once I got that, I was able to sand the sides just a little bit. It didn't affect the tung oil because it was really absorbed into the wood. But what I had to do next, I needed to do a couple of things, and I'll explain to you as I go. I wanted to route the outer edge of this piece so it was rounded. Now what you see is I already taped it down, super glued it to the counter, but you see I have tape on the top piece. I didn't want to take a chance of any of those pieces and those letters coming off if I caught it with the router. And I'm glad I did that. Then my other concern was when I took it off, I had to be careful taking off that blue tape on the top, that I didn't pull off any of those pieces that were, you know, fragile. So the routing went beautiful. Taking the tape off was beautiful. I didn't have any issues, and I was quite pleased with how the routing worked out, because I was a little nervous of how that was going to look. So now that that's ready, we're back for the final sanding of this piece, and it's the routed edges, smooth them out a little bit more. I was able to do that with the oscillating tool. It went pretty quick. It smoothed out really, really well. Now I know you may have noticed that I'm sanding after I put the tung oil on, and I'll explain in a little bit of why that didn't matter to me. I'm going to continue finishing the piece, and I want to get the signature coin on the back. I'm going to show you how I did that. I know I showed it before, but having that center hole already there for me, it was nice. I didn't have to worry about placement. It was just a matter of getting it put in, glued, and finish off with the hardware and the felt tabs. Off camera, I sprayed on clear acrylic, and that sealed everything in, and it looked beautiful. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so very much. I hope you have a blessed day, a blessed week. Take care, and God bless.